Good afternoon and welcome to Ad Age's Gen Z Voices Roundtable, Shopping Edition. I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli, Special Projects Editor and Senior Reporter here at Ad Age. It's mid-December and we are in the thick of the holiday shopping season, so it's a perfect time to talk about the shopping habits of Gen Z, the group of consumers that every marketer wants to attract. I'm joined today by a great panel of young experts who can share what strategies brands are taking that actually resonate. We have Alexis Kwan, Junior Creative Strategist at Archrival, a youth culture agency. Bryant Lin, co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer of NinetyEight, a Gen Z marketing agency. And Johnny Tai, Junior Cultural Strategist at TBWA Worldwide. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks so much for having us. Sorry. So great to be here.
A reminder that if you have questions for our panelists, please submit them on our social channels and we'll try to get to those that we receive. And let us know where you're watching from. So let's start with this audience question around what is influencing purchases and how social media might play a role in those decisions. The question is, what are the primary sources that influence your aesthetic, what you buy? Is there one social platform that you default to? Alexis, why don't you start with this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So the primary social platforms that I would say influence what I buy and I'm constantly seeking style and inspiration from are probably TikTok and Instagram. The search functions that have developed on both of these platforms lately really emphasize the need for marketers to be thinking about SEO on social, because I constantly go from seeing a creator on TikTok post about something to looking it up on Google search on my own or navigating to links in Instagram as well. So those ones are definitely the priority social platforms that I'll use, or Depop.
And our next question is around sustainability. Can you talk a bit about what sustainable packaging you would like to see in everyday retailers, such as a grocery store? Johnny, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I really love this question. So sustainable packaging is a really big focus for Gen Z, specifically because it's a new way where Gen Z can, practice more sustainably. So for example, it's really expected these days for a brand to have more sustainable practices like using less water or things like that. But packaging is a way for Gen Z to kind of participate. So a really great example that I've seen outside of the grocery store or retail is with this company based in Arizona called Canned Goods Clothing. I think the other panelists on this call might have seen it, but it's basically this company that puts T-shirts inside of an aluminum can. And the owner is 19 years old. He's a college freshman. And he also includes a pack of wildflower seeds in the can, so that after you take the T-shirt out of the can, you could use that can to plant the seeds and it has a second life. So in terms of sustainability and circularity, that's really interesting to me because it serves a new purpose and a new life.
How did you find out about that company? Did you see one of their ads?
Yeah, so it's on TikTok. It's really interesting because when I looked it up, there's only 2 articles out there in the wild about this, but it's happening organically on TikTok. I think the company has 200,000 followers right now, and I think there's a lot of momentum around that.
Yeah, that's super interesting. There's also a follow-up question around sustainability, and that is, how do you see Generation Z's shopping habits influencing the consumer industry, particularly in the realm of sustainable clothing? It kind of plays into what that company has going on too.
Yeah, when it comes to sustainability in clothing, I think there's a lot of brands out there that are already doing this really well. Patagonia has been championing worn wear, and H&M got a lot of awards for their loop machines. So in terms of that, I think buy it for life items are really interesting, just for the sense of being able to purchase a product and ensuring that it has repairability in mind and other things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because there is a focus around sustainability, but then we see the rise of fast fashion and some of this disposable fashion like a Temu or something like that when it comes to retail, which all appear to be doing really well with sales in the US. So you have to wonder what's driving that. And I think that plays into this next question, which is around pricing. Do you think that these businesses will be able to still maintain affordable prices or simply move towards higher price point averages since the demand is there? I think that's around sustainability. Does anyone have thoughts on the pricing conundrum?
I can talk about this. I think for what we see, Gen Zs, at least for now, will probably stay on the lower side as we don't really have that much buying power. But I think in like 5 or 10 years, once we've kind of built up our careers and we've gotten some of that buying power back, we'll definitely start shifting towards more sustainable options. Especially ones that, like Johnny said, are like buy it for life. So we'll tend to look for more like higher quality goods as we are now, even through like thrifting and other kind of sustainable practices such as that. So that would be something that we will definitely look for in the future.
Yeah, thrifting. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Adrian. Going off of that too, and just the state of our buying power and like ability to like pay for things. I think one of our biggest predictions from Archrival, at least for 2024, is that Gen Z is really focused on, or at least nervous and has anxiety around personal finances moving into the next year. So like in 2024, we're predicting that Gen Z is like going to start having to make like life decisions based on finances, whether that's like moving, kind of postponing school, or like when to start school, etc. So keep that in mind as you're pricing things. But also, if the product is, I would say this personally, if the product is going to last for a longer time or like the quality is better, then I'm willing to pay that premium price for it. But it kind of has to be, again, proven out by like brand communities or influencers and reviews that are showing like the quality of that content to inform me to make that bigger buying decision.
Yeah, I think the rise of the circular economy and thrift stores, like Bryant mentioned, we're going to see more of these types of secondhand retailers like Poshmark or other brands like that. Would you say, Johnny? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I think secondhand plays a really big role. So a few months ago, ThreadUp released a report saying that 30% of Gen Z are looking to secondhand in order to afford more luxury goods. And going back to that conversation about buy it for life, that's a really interesting way for Gen Z to afford these things, just because they're identifying other products that won't really, turn to shreds in a few months.
Right, you want it to last forever, or as long as you need it. Bryant, let's talk a little bit about the shopper journey. I know that's something that you've done a bit of study on. This was an audience question that we got, and it is, what is the role of research in purchasing? And is there something you would buy without checking or reading about first?
Yeah, so I think research is definitely a very important role for Gen Zs. I think in the marketing world, we think about like high consideration and low consideration items. But I think for Gen Z, those thresholds have shifted a little. I think for previous generations, maybe buying clothes would be sort of on the lower end, but for Gen Zs, it can tend to be on the higher end as well. And yeah, I think research does play a huge role into the majority of the things that Gen Z buys, as we don't have that much money. So we're really trying to make the most of our finances. And in that sense, we tend to look to social media and a lot of other sites to make our decisions. So I think some of the most prominent ones that we've talked to Gen Zs about are TikTok for their search function, and a lot of influencers on there are really passionate about what they seek. And then also, surprisingly, Reddit as well has been a very big search item for when it comes to research and making sure that they get the information that they need from people who are really like into that product or into that niche.
Right, you want the experts. Alexis or Johnny, have you guys recently purchased anything without reading or checking about it first? Anything that comes to mind?
Actually, yes. So I think it really depends on, like, when you're thinking about purchasing, there's like the digital world and then there's the physical world. I live in New York and I'm really lucky that I can like walk and have accessible shops near me. And I feel like I'm constantly being intrigued by, like, especially like, I don't know, local groceries or like exactly like nicely packaged new brands that I see. I'll go ahead and just grab it at the store if it's catching my attention without necessarily checking or reading about it online first. So if I'm having an in-store physical experience, I like likely won't be checking if I'm making that purchase right there. If it's a bigger expense, like a bit better quality, like coat or something, I know that Aritzia right now has like the super poof, like that I'm considering buying, and I've seen it in the store, but I want to make sure that I'm getting like some reviews that I'm seeing online first, or checking like how they're being rated, if other influencers are actually liking them. That's the kind of thing where my purchase path would maybe start in store by something that I saw and then go online to that brand community of like real people talking about this product before I purchase it. So smaller scale things really, like, I can be intrigued by without necessarily checking or reading about it first. But those larger ones that Bryant was talking about definitely require more consideration.
What about direct to consumer? Are there any products that you're buying through some of these DTC brands? Johnny, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I'm really into hair pomades, and pretty much all of the companies and brands out there are all D2C, specifically because they don't work with salons or they don't work with big box retailers. And when it comes to that, I think it starts with the community. So for myself, I look for forums that are in the hair pomade world, and then I start seeing what brands people are bringing up. I'll look at influencers reviewing products, and then that's how I end up with that brand. And then that's how I begin doing more research. So I think that's a really new way of product discovery.
And that's such a tricky one too, because you don't want to be stuck with a whole tube of this. I guess that's where like sampling comes into play as well. How do you feel about samples for things that you're buying?
I personally love samples. I think getting to get a little bit of um, I guess a little freebie for your purchase, and then like a try before you buy really gives like assurance that you're making the right decision. So that's something that I definitely appreciate.
Yeah,
Especially when
I
we're
would.
talking about finances. Sorry, Alexis, like you said
No,
before.
definitely. I agree 100%. I would even go so far as to say, like, sampling doesn't even have to be free. Like, right now at our agency, we're noticing that a lot of like my coworkers and I that are in Gen Z are really obsessed with Newly right now, which is part of the parent brand, like Urban. Um, but you basically pay a, I would say, like, medium high rate subscription like per month for, it's like $98, and it you receive 6 pieces of clothing that you can wear all month and then return to them at the end of the month or decide to buy it at a discount. And that form of sampling is so helpful for me, especially as I'm like building up my winter wardrobe or changing for seasons. Like, I'm willing to pay for that kind of a service, even if it is like not even if I would have a hard time paying $98 for like a new t-shirt or like blouse. It seems like there's a lot of value coming from this business that is more like a subscription based, where you get to sample these products before you actually buy them.
A reminder to our audience, if you have any questions, please put them in our social channels and do let us know where you're coming from. We have another question that actually feeds into the sampling. How important is ease of returns and even fast shipping when it comes to what you guys are buying? Johnny?
That's a really interesting question, specifically for me, because I feel like it's double-edged. So obviously, for a lot of consumers, ease of returns is a really big factor in terms of actually clicking buy. For myself, I love purchasing on Amazon because I know it's 30-day returns. Right now, it's extended all the way to the end of January, and I'm more confident in purchasing things because of that. But at the same time, I recognize that the more I'm encouraged to buy and buy and buy, I'm contributing to more unsustainable practices. And I've seen a lot of new retailers. I believe Zara is one of them, where they're starting to charge consumers for returns. And I think this is something that we could start seeing more of in the future, or at least begin offering more features where you may be penalized for smaller purchases online and encouraged to buy more products to ensure that everything comes in with just one package instead of 10 smaller envelopes.
We have another question that was actually around school supplies. Where do most students go to shop for school supplies these days? Bryant, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, I think school supplies have not really, I think, changed over the years. I think the main places where I've seen Gen Zs go has still been like Target. But I think there has been a bigger shift for like online school supplies as well. So definitely Amazon has become one of the bigger places to get those. But other than that, I don't think I've seen too much of a shift otherwise.
I think for me, what's really interesting now is the fact that COVID kind of kickstarted a lot of students learning from laptops and Chromebooks. So I think now families are now starting to go to these big box stores that include a tech department or maybe even a Best Buy to find these laptops. And I've seen a lot of families, leaving with Leapfrogs and Kindles. And a lot of these tablets that you may have never heard of, but they're specifically marketed to children. And I believe this will be a larger focus.
What about groceries? Where are you guys shopping for groceries? Are you doing most of that in-store or online? And which brands, which retailers specifically? I don't know who wants to jump in on this one. Alexis, or sorry, Bryant.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm probably one of the weird people who actually enjoys grocery shopping in person. So I think just being able to be in store and get to look at the produce yourself and make sure that you're the one who's choosing the right one, I think that gives me peace of mind as opposed to the online grocery shopping.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I'm also an avid grocery shopper, like in store. I know that before I moved here and I was still driving a car, I would often do like pick up groceries though as well. So like order online, park and pick up the groceries. Really, really like simplified, easy way to shop as well. I would say that the main like grocery stores that I try to go to are definitely the more budget friendly ones. So anytime I can go to like a Trader Joe's instead of like Whole Foods, or like a smaller brand like Kroger. I mean, that's not a small brand, but like big supermarket that has lots of discounted prices. That is the ideal situation for grocery shopping. Like I mentioned though, I do love shopping like the artisanal markets and seeing the brands that are being curated by these local retailers and sold as well for those specialty items. So I would say grocery shopping is not just one place for me anymore. It's multiple stores to make up my groceries or like stock my pantry.
And that's another opportunity for sampling some of those artisanal vendors. We have a question from Millie from YouTube. What role is nostalgia playing in the Gen Z shopping landscape? This is a super interesting question. Johnny, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So nostalgia is really interesting, especially this year, because we've seen the Grimace milkshake, and we've seen Barbie being really huge. But these are two properties that have been around since before we were born, and yet it's a huge thing right now. So I think there's this really interesting romanticism for Gen Z of playing into nostalgia that they weren't really a part of, and want to play into that aesthetic. And I feel like that's why Y2K is really big right now as well.
Speaking
Is it
on,
something? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say, speaking on Y2K, one of the brands that we work with, Paul Frank, has really seen a resurgence as well. So nostalgia has become a really big trend for Gen Z in 2023. And yeah, I think we're all here for it.
Is it because Gen Z likes nostalgic things like Grimace or Barbie because their parents did too, and they can enjoy those things together? Or where do you think it's coming from?
I think it's a callback to the more simpler times. And again, this is a little bit interesting because Gen Z was kind of born when technology was already around. But when we think about Barbie and Grimace and vinyl records and cassettes and other things like that, those were born from a time where technology wasn't really advanced. And it's something of interest because of that, just because it's something different and it's something new to Gen Z. Even though it's older to other generations.
New and old. Perfect combination. We have another question from our social channels, from LinkedIn, Stephanie specifically. For a product review, where do you look first? Google, Amazon, the product site, or social media? Alexis,
I would say, yeah, it depends like where I find the product. So if I'm being fed the product while I'm just scrolling on Instagram, like I think I'm constantly shifting between this like consumption, like just to like be entertained mindset to like, oh, now I'm a shopper. Like that's constantly happening when I'm online. So if I'm on TikTok and I see a product that I like, I'll just navigate to like what's being searched about that product. Similarly to Amazon, like if I'm going to Amazon for a purpose, then I'm just gonna see the reviews like where they live. So it really is such an importance, I think, to have these reviews live in all the places, and just be gathering those real insights from people as a brand and having them leave reviews in multiple different places, because it's so easy for us to switch between like the mindset of just being entertained or inspired to like learning about a brand or a product.
And we have a question, another LinkedIn question from Katya. How important is it for you whether the brand is active on social media platforms or not? Do you have any good community management cases in mind? Bryant, do you have any thoughts here?
Yeah, I think for brands on social media, it's definitely almost like a must, at least for Instagram. I think we tend to see that as kind of like a second website or like a storefront. So it just kind of emphasizes the legitimacy and reliability of a brand. So I think it's very important for a brand to be on social media. And in terms of community management cases, I think really being responsive on those profiles and making sure that you're able to address any comments or talk to people using those social media platforms is really paramount. I think one of the bigger shifts that we've seen with Gen Z is them using social media as kind of a communication tool back to brands. So it really opens up this kind of like two-way relationship for brands and Gen Z.
Let's get one forward-looking question in. What shopping trends do you expect to see in 2024? Hopefully you can each add your thoughts here. Johnny, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I think I would go back to the entire conversation that we've had with the cost of living crisis. Everything is getting more expensive. I think the stigma around gifting secondhand is going to be broken next year, specifically where, you know, you wouldn't really expect to send someone or gift someone something used or old for the holiday season. But now I think it's a little bit more personalized. If someone were to go to a thrift store, find something that you can't really buy right now and gift it to somebody, it shows a little bit more personality involved. And I think that it's a new avenue for consumers to really look to, especially with affordability and other things like that.
And nostalgia.
Yeah, nostalgia.
I think taking a look at social media shopping will probably have a big decision to make in 2024. I think with Instagram shopping, but also with the recently launched TikTok shop, I think both of them have gained some traction, but aren't doing as well as people have predicted. So I think there will be a major decision that will come, or a major kind of experience change to make it so that Gen Zs are looking at shopping within the app more favorably.
And Alexis?
Yeah, the last, like, I just want to add one more point, but I predict that in 2024, Gen Z will learn. I mean, we're starting to be more conscious, and we have been for the past couple of years, about the power our purchases make. So in seeing like the recent boycotts, like I would really emphasize to brands that like now more than ever, Gen Zs are putting their dollars to the brands that they want to support. I would also say, like, in that regard, the type of ways that brands are being able to flex into this space and really like helping meet Gen Zs where they are could be through like community, like upcycling programs. There are ways in which that Gen Z is like starting to talk about just more mutual aid and building communities. So if brands can also understand that and take that insight from our generation going forward, I think they're less likely to get canceled or put on a boycott list. But yeah, just hyper aware that Gen Z is watching.
On
Can I
that
add one
note
more
of
thing?
advice, we are actually out of time. Alexis, Bryant, Johnny, thank you all so much for joining us. This was really insightful.
Awesome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to our Ad Age team, Anna Sakula, Lauren Chiardio, Elizabeth Moore, Phil Carpinella, and Alicia Juarez. A reminder that Ad Age will be hosting a conference dedicated to Gen Z consumers on March 6th, so mark your calendars and register early at adage.com/Gen Z Summit. Thanks for watching.